often our patterns are tied to us not having compassion for each other. We create limiting beliefs that, if I'm kind, if I'm compassionate to myself, that means I'm being boastful or prideful, or that I think I'm better than other people, or that I think I'm being selfish. It's a lie. Kindness is what heals. Compassion has more transformative effect within our souls than shame ever did. Welcome to Empowered Now. I'm Colette Kati. Here we talk about real confidence, the kind that comes from trusting yourself, honoring your needs, and living with intention. Let's begin. Hi, welcome. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday morning. If you're hearing this when the podcast is first being released, Monday morning, 6 a.m. Mountain Time is when I release them, because it matters so much that we begin our week and our days, every single day, with intention. I don't know about you, but I can remember a time in my life when every morning, and it still happens, I still have to intentionally combat this because I'm an anxious waker. Anybody understand what I'm talking about? I wake up and I'm already anxious. Not every single morning, but it happens often enough that I have to be very intentional about how I begin my days so that I don't take that energy throughout the rest of my day. That's why I intentionally release the podcast Monday mornings, so that you can have an opportunity to reset your nervous system, to intentionally set your mind right, get your body in the right place, get your mind in the right place, and your thoughts moving in the right direction to begin your week. It matters so much. So, my morning practice is one of those things that for me is a non-negotiable. Okay, I will say it doesn't always happen every day of the week, but at least 3 out of the 5, well, there's more days in a week. At least 5 out of the 7 days in the week, I am waking up, starting my morning with meditation, reading, journaling, and really setting the tone for my energy. And that's why I chose Monday mornings for the podcast. First thing in the morning. So Monday mornings, I'm going to be there for you, helping you set your tone for your week. And with that, let's dive in for today's topic. All right, so much has been on my mind lately. You've probably heard, if you've been watching me on Instagram, I've been talking a lot about Emmy's graduation. Being a mother and having children grow up is so painful and so beautiful at the same time. Yeah, do you hear me? Do you feel me? I have been feeling just this energy of I'm so happy and excited for her, but I'm really sad. Like, I'm feeling the weight of her growing up and watching old videos and seeing old pictures and just, oh my goodness, it's sad. And I know this doesn't hit every parent, and it happens in different phases, I guess. Because I've talked to some of my friends that are like, no, I'm not feeling that way. I'm just still so busy and I'm in the hustle of it that I haven't allowed myself to think about it or slow down. And I totally get that. And I'm grateful for our ways that we are able to manage our own emotions. And some of us do have to do it that way. Like, nope, I'm just going to stay really busy so I don't have to think about it. I don't have to do it. But I'm also grateful for those moments where I allow myself to feel, because I know I've got to feel it eventually, or it's just going to get bottled up. So have you ever felt that way? Are you in that state of your life right now where you're feeling the energy of life changing? Maybe it's not a child graduating, maybe it's something else, maybe it's divorce, maybe it's aging and you're an empty nester now, maybe it's transition in your work or in your job, or you're moving across the country, or you are now graduating and you're moving into a totally new phase of your life. We all know change is going to happen, and it's happening right now. So where are you in your journey of change and in your journey of your nervous system handling all the changes? Well, today I specifically wanted to talk about how our identity impacts our change. Identity is a big topic that I've been diving into lately, and I'm hearing so much of this from my clients, that I don't know who I am. Specifically mothers who their children are graduating, they're becoming empty nesters, their life is just changing and transitioning out of the busy motherhood phase to now I am an empty nester. This is also happening with some of my clients who are, you know what? I am now a mom. I used to be like single, or I used to be, just young and it was just me and I just had me to worry about. And now I'm a mother. Oh my gosh. This is a transition. What a huge change that is. And all of these changes really impact how we see ourselves. So let's unpack identity for a moment. And where we're going with this is, what my goal for this episode is to help you, wherever you are on your journey in life, wherever you are on your belief about your identity and who you are, that I'm going to help you as you transition into the next part. I'm going to help you discover what is underneath who you have been, who you are becoming, who you see yourself now, who you want to see yourself as. Identity plays a big role in how we are showing up in our lives, how our nervous system feels, how our bodies feel. And so let's unpack it a little bit. And real quick, before we dive into the meat of this episode, I really want to remind you that my Idaho event is happening. Tickets are being sold. It is available to you now. I know it's a lot to think about, picking up everything, traveling, buying tickets, getting childcare. All of that can feel really overwhelming and heavy. But I want to invite you to explore for a minute how life could be for you if you knew that you could show up for 2 days in Idaho with me and leave a different person. I know, that sounds crazy. But these 2 days are going to be packed with this kind of transformation that I'm talking about. We are transitioning from one identity, wanting to embrace maybe an identity that we envision, or maybe it's an identity that is kind of working in us. Maybe it's something that you've always felt you were meant to be or become or do, or a way that you were meant to show up in the world, but you're not quite there, or you feel like, that's a good idea, but it's not really me. Like if you are struggling with that transition in your life of wanting to step into a certain identity, or even discover who you are now, Idaho 2-day Rooted Reset is what that's designed to do. We are going to go to the root of ourselves, and we're going to reset and reboot and rewire so that you will leave this event feeling like a new person. Like you've got tools, like you've got this identity is now closer to you. You are in a blooming phase of your life. And this 2-day event is going to jumpstart the rest of your life. So, I know, it's a lot. If that calls to you, if you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I will have the link in the description with all the information. Just go check it out. You can always DM me with any questions or comment on the videos. I'm here for you. This is what life is all about. I'm very passionate about how so many of us get stuck in one identity. We get stuck in one way that we see ourselves, and it kind of stays that way throughout our whole lives. Yeah, we transition and we grow, but our mindset around who we are and who we should be often will just stay the same. And when we aren't able to show up that way, it can really bring us down. So going back into the meat of the episode, here's a scenario. I'll use myself as an example. So when I kind of see myself in 2 different phases in life. There's like the pre-breakdown Colette and the post-breakdown Colette. Then there was a whole period in the middle that was like the breakdown phase. That was intense and it was crazy and scary, but also really powerful at the same time. So let me go to pre-breakdown Colette. And let me know if you hear yourself in this at all, because I know I'm not alone in this. Pre-breakdown Colette. This version of me, this identity that I had, was very set. There was a certain way that I saw myself, and not bad things, but just like, this is who I am. This is how I show up in my world. I show up for everybody. I am kind. I'm generous. I'm loving. I care about people. I am willing to go the extra mile for people. I really like peace in my life. And so I'm willing to do what I need to in order to create that peace, because I'm a peacemaker. That's how I saw myself. And then there's all the other types of things that we see ourselves like, oh, well, I'm a mom. I'm a mom now. I've been a mom for a really long time. But the interesting thing is, as even being a mom and having people see me as a mom and even feeling confident as a mom, I always felt like that's not all that I am. And even though online, that was kind of my identity. I was mommy tard. I was the mom of the internet. Like, that was kind of my identity that people in the public eye saw me as well. And so I was kind of comfortable there, even though there was still a part of me that was like, that's not all I am. I'm like so much more than that. But I'm comfortable to kind of be here in this mom, wife identity role. And have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like, you know what, this is who I am. This is what I do. But there was a part of you that thought, oh, there's so much more that I want to be or that I could be. But I'm okay with just like seeing myself as this person or this way, and also just showing up that way. What happens, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with us holding onto an identity in our lives. We kind of need our identities to be able to show up in the world, our personalities. But what often happens, and what happened for me, is that I learned to self-abandon in order to uphold my identity. And what that would look like is I'm not saying no to things, because if I am kind and generous and I'm giving, if I say no, that means I'm mean or I'm unkind. That's just one example. And that was me. I definitely had that pattern. So I want you to think about that for you. What is a pattern that your current identity, or the identity that isn't necessarily serving you anymore, what is a pattern that this identity is acting out of that is actually a self-abandoning pattern? Think about that just for a moment. I had to. What is that pattern for you? How am I showing up right now in my life as part of my identity that is actually not serving me anymore? That's actually not helping me. Now, let's look at the identity that I feel. The interesting thing is that our identity is kind of always evolving if we allow it to. So, I've got kids leaving home. It's sad. It's really hard. But I also know that I'm going to be okay. And I also know that there is another phase, or like this whole percentage of me that is like, if you imagine a glacier, like, what's the thing? The iceberg, the Titanic hit, if you think of an iceberg, like there's this part above the surface, but when you watch National Geographic or whatever, they always say there's this like 90% of it or whatnot is below the surface. And that's like ourselves. That's like our identities. We're showing a certain part of ourselves that we're comfortable showing, that we're comfortable being seen as. But there's this whole part to us that is even more like, it's the depth of us. It's deeper. bigger. It's more expansive. It's like wants to be seen, wants to be like calling the shots in our lives. But it's so scary for us to step into a new identity or an expansive identity that we just kind of stay here on the surface and are, continue showing up in ways that we are comfortable being seen. Are you with me? Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like, oh, I know there's a part of me that maybe wants to show up this way, or wants to, you watch others that do things a certain way and you're like, wow, I wish I could do that. I wish I could show up that way. But we're just not comfortable doing that. And that's okay. There's no shame in this. It's just interesting to notice. Like, how am I showing up or not showing up in my life in order to uphold a certain identity that I'm comfortable in? And going back to mothers, going back to that feeling of now my children are leaving home, they're graduating. Who am I now? That's the question I hear. Or if you're a new mother, like, who am I now? Now that I've got a child and I've got this new responsibility, who am I now? The truth is that you are always you. Like, you have this depth to you, and your capacity to achieve, to feel the best version of yourself, to show up as the best version of yourself, it's always there. It's always within you. And it's okay if you're only showing a surface part of yourself. It's okay. And it's okay if you are comfortable in one identity and now that identity is being challenged through life transition, through change, through whatever type of, things that happen to us. Our identity gets challenged. That's okay too. It's okay to be uncomfortable as we transition through life. And so now, how do we take this process of transformation, this process of transitioning, and be with ourselves in the change and the evolution of our own identities? And how do we be intentional about choosing to show up or choosing a certain identity for ourselves? So that's what we're going to unpack. The two things. How do we navigate this changing of identities? And what was the second thing? Oh my gosh, I just said it. I might have to go rewind it because of my brain. How do we navigate it, basically? How do we move through this? How do we navigate it? First of all, it's normal and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. I hear it all the time. Not even just from my clients, but from my friends, from people, during this transition. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with myself. My life is totally changing. This is normal and it's okay. And there's no shame. There's nothing wrong with you. You are in the right place at the exact perfect time you are meant to be here. And, oh yes, I remembered. How are we going to navigate this? And how do we be intentional about how we're showing up for ourselves in these transitions? Going back to my scenario as I was transitioning from my identity of like being kind of a people pleaser, I didn't always see myself as that. I wouldn't have called myself that, but learning more about myself throughout my transition and my breakdown in life, I realized, oh yeah, I definitely have that pattern of people pleasing. So that transition for me and that experience for me was so impactful that I have since broken down kind of my experience. And then I have tested it and kind of beta tested it against my clients' experiences and other people that have been in my life. And I have broken down my process to actually how I helped myself through that transition in life to what I now call the Kati method. And just real quick, kindness, alignment, tribe, and intention. And though the Kati method goes so much deeper, that's kind of how I break it down so that I can organize it in my brain and help clients move through this process for themselves. So the one I'm going to talk about today is that kindness piece. The K in the Kati method. It sounds so simple, but it is one of the most difficult things for women specifically. And it's one of the things that my clients, when they come to me, we work on it first. That there's a reason why it's the first piece, because when we're going through all this stuff in our lives, if we are identifying with it and judging ourselves through it, that is what's going to pound us into the ground. That is what's going to create the overwhelm, the burnout, the stress, the anxiety, because we're constantly thinking there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be here. I should be showing up differently. There's something like I have, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not doing it right. We're berating ourselves. We're judging ourselves. And that is just going to keep us stuck. So that one piece of learning how to have kindness and compassion for ourselves, not for other people. Yes, for other people, it's a yes but mostly for ourselves. I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with friends, clients, colleagues that it's so easy for them to talk kind about other people, but when it comes to themselves, they don't give themselves the kind of grace. Like, how often do we actually, we're telling our best friend, oh, you need to love yourself. You look great. You need to own your worth and be empowered. Yes, you get it, girl, go for it. And then we're, to ourselves in the mirror, speaking the exact opposite things. We've got to create a system of bringing ourselves back to compassion. It's not easy because often our patterns are tied to us not having compassion for each other. We create limiting beliefs that, if I'm kind, if I'm compassionate to myself, that means I'm being boastful or prideful, or that I think I'm better than other people, or that I think I'm being selfish. It's a lie. Kindness is what heals. Compassion has more transformative effect within our souls than shame ever did. We've used shame for centuries. It's in religion, it's in parenting, it's everywhere. Shame is just a thing that is always going to be there. But when we can acknowledge the shame and we can learn to turn to grace and kindness, acceptance and compassion towards ourselves, that's what's going to begin the powerful transformation of helping us be free from our limiting beliefs and identities. Okay, so that is the number one piece. As you're going through these transitions that you are facing right now, whatever transition you're specifically facing, I want you to acknowledge, maybe notice 3 ways that you are denying yourself of compassion, where you are maybe speaking down to yourself, or you're not offering yourself the kind of grace that you would a friend. You've got to be your own best friend. You've got to put your arm around yourself and offer that love. You've got to learn how to look yourself in the eyes, in the mirror, and say, it's okay. It's okay that this hurts. I love you. I'm not leaving you. It's so simple, but try it. If you struggle to do it, if you try this exercise and you're struggling, let me know. That's why I'm here. But it's not a problem. It's just information. Let's allow ourselves to take all of this in on neutral ground. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Instead of, oh my gosh, what a problem. How could I treat myself this way? Okay. Neutrality is going to create space for change. I use my hands a lot. I just noticed that. I've been watching myself a few times in the edits back. I'm like, wow, I'm painting a picture with my arms here. I'm doing a pantomime. It's just how I work. It's fine. So if you want to see me doing amazing things with my hands, come and watch the YouTube version of this. All right. So the last piece of this, how we can support ourselves. What was it? I really should have written these down. How we support ourselves in stepping into the version of ourselves or the identity that we can feel kind of bubbling beneath the surface, or maybe it scares us. Maybe it scares you to think about the identity that you actually want. And so staying where you are is more comfortable, even though it's kind of uncomfortable in some ways because it's painful to watch, or it's painful to feel that feeling of wanting expansion, freedom, joy, and not being able to touch it. But it is comfortable for our nervous systems to stay where we are. Because if I step into a new identity and I am seen, then that means I'm not safe. Like being highly visible, having, there's several scenarios where our nervous system is like, no, if I have to be that identity, then I have to do this and this and this, and that scares me. And so I'm just going to stay here, stuck, right? When you think about if you're one of the two moms that I was talking about in my scenario, a new mom or a mom who is becoming an empty nester, it can be really, really scary to think, what is on the other side of this? I have been this version of me for so long, and I've been pouring into other people, or I've been pouring into myself, and now I've got to learn how to balance what this new version of me is focusing on. It can be really scary. I really can. And I hear you and I see you because I've been there. I mean, I'm almost to the empty nester, but not quite. We've got a few more years, right? But it can be very, very scary. Okay, so I want to leave you just with something simple. It's a simple exercise that you can do for yourself to help you kind of step into this identity that you're moving into. And here's a very, very important piece to this that I want you to remember. When you're building a new identity is built through repeated evidence. It's just going to show up one day. It isn't just like all of a sudden, like, bam, I'm a new woman and here I am and this is what I'm doing now and this is who I am and I'm super confident in this new role in my life and this new identity. Like, wouldn't that be amazing, right? It doesn't happen that way. It happens through repeated evidence. So that's why we bring compassion in. And that's why we bring intentional identity reinforcement actions and thoughts. I did not plan that beforehand. I don't even know what I said. But it's through repeated evidence that we are able to step into a new identity. So if you think about the woman that you want to be, the identity that you want to take on in this next phase of your life. By the way, you don't have to just allow it to happen, right? You don't just have to, you don't have to assume an identity. Because most of us, that's kind of what we do our whole life. Like as children, we assume a certain identity. This is who I am. This is who my parents say I am. So therefore I am, right? And then we get older and we just kind of like stay in that assumed identity. We're not doing that. This is intentional, transformative work that we are doing. If you're here listening to this podcast right now, you want to intentionally choose your life. You wouldn't be coming back here listening to these episodes if you didn't intentionally want to create your life. And so, first of all, let's celebrate that. I want you to celebrate that for a minute because most of the world is not doing this. Most of the world assumes their identity and they stay there, uncomfortable or not. They stay there because this work isn't easy. But just you being here, listening to these words that I'm telling you, tells me that you are ready to step into and intentionally choose who you are and who you want to be. And by the way, who you are, like those little desires and inklings that you've had your whole life, let that feed you, let that fuel you, because you're meant to do something in this world that is big. Even if it doesn't involve a lot of other people, even if it's just you living the life of your dreams, it's meant for you. If there's a desire in there for that, it's meant for you. So don't give up on this work. Let's take those tiny actions every day to reinforce and give your nervous system evidence of the identity that you want to step into, that you inherently believe is there, because it is. And you wouldn't be here exploring all this if it wasn't. Okay, so here's the question. I want you to just ask yourself this question. And if you need to pause this and write it down, if you're driving, do not do that, but maybe make a mental note of the timestamp on this recording so that you can come back and write it down. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes too. All right, so here's the question. If I were becoming a woman, or if I were a woman who trusted herself, lived from peace instead of survival, and loved her life, what would I do today? If I were a woman who trusted herself, lived from peace instead of survival, and loved her life, what would I do today? And just think about that. And whatever the first action that comes to you, do that thing today. It can be tiny. It can be small. Even just an action of looking at yourself in the mirror and letting yourself know you are loved. You are beautiful. I love you. Even that is reinforcing an identity of a woman who trusts herself and who cares about herself. And a woman who does that consistently is unstoppable, is so powerful in her world. She shows up in a room knowing who she is, trusting herself. Yes, she will have struggles because she's human, but she doesn't abandon herself in those struggles. Tiny little things. So just ask yourself that question every day. And you can reword it. If that one doesn't resonate with you, think of the version of you that you want to be and create a statement, a question for yourself. If I were this woman that showed up, that did this, or felt this way, tapping into the feeling that you actually want, what would I do? How would I show up? This is how lives are transformed. This is how you create the life that you want. Because if I'm a woman that shows up for peace instead of survival, I am going to set some boundaries. I am going to speak up when I need to. I am going to learn to say no. I'm going to learn how to be comfortable with other people being uncomfortable. I'm also going to learn how to be kind and not abandon myself. How to be kind to others even and not abandon myself. Because you can do that. So many good things. All right. I am so grateful to be here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up here for yourself on this beautiful Monday morning, or whenever you're tuning in to listen to this. This is powerful work that we do together. And if you want to go deeper, please join me in Idaho, June 15th and 16th. All the details are below, and keep following for more because I have a lot more coming this year that I'm excited to share with you. And I will see you next time. Mwah! Bye. If the show has been meaningful for you, leaving a quick rating or review helps us reach those who need it most. Thank you for being here. See you next time.